Guten Abend, good evening. We do that evening in English because I welcome very much here our guest, Basir Mahmood. He is born in Lahore in Pakistan and is now living in Amsterdam. And I maybe can tell a little bit how we met. This is not long ago. In March, there was Art Dubai. And as Basir has been shortlisted for the Abraj Group Art Prize, I've seen his videos and I was totally attracted by it. And then we spoke a little bit, and then I thought, and when I heard, I have to say, maybe from Pakistan, coming from Pakistan to here would be a little bit too big thing, but from Amsterdam it's so manageable, and so I'm very, very glad that you followed our invitation to come here and to speak a little bit about your work, and also about, that's what we thought could be interesting, because Basir is has a very interesting biography. He is born in 85 in Lahore, as I said, and then he is coming, one could say, from an artistic family, so to speak. And he also studied visual art at the Beacon House National University in Lahore, and he never left Lahore until the age of 26, I guess. And then he had one residency after the other, and this is something which is maybe very, very typical for an artistic biography at the moment. And this is something I would really start to speak with you about. And also then we will come also to the videos. He brought some selection of his video works, and we just spoke about how he is now, when he is in Amsterdam in this Rijksakademie Stipendiat Residency, where a lot of people and a lot of artists coming from abroad, I guess. This is that a principle that that people are coming from non-European countries? No.
I think it's everywhere internationally. Yeah. They select like 12 artists internationally and 12 Dutch artists. This is how we combine them in a group.
But it's really a huge group. You told me it's 50 artists who are in Amsterdam together, and then every year it's 25 are changing, and so it's a lot of. It's not a competition, or is it also a kind of competition to be there with the other artists?
It depends how you take it. I think some artists take it very seriously, but some are not really involved in the institution. They do things otherwise, travel around or whatever. But there are some artists who are involved very much in the residency. It depends on your career, your background, where you are, because we have artists from the age of 25 till 35. So it really depends. Yeah.
And do you also meet there other artists from Pakistan, for example?
Yes, surprisingly this time. Last year they had one artist from Pakistan who just finished, and this time they had two artists from Pakistan and one more artist who was a guest resident. So, and we all know each other before, so we were also like a Pakistani gang.
Maybe I think this would also be very interesting for us to hear a little bit of the art scene in Pakistan. I think we are not so in that field, and I mean, we know Pakistan is a huge country and a new country, so to say. It's between India and Afghanistan and China and Iran, so it's in a totally different field from the region, from the world than here. And I think it would be very interesting to also to make understandable how this felt as a clash for you when you came then from Lahore to Stuttgart, where you had your first residency at Schloss Solitude, and then there's really one residency after the other, and it is an impressive list. It's Bahia in Brazil, and it's in Japan and Turkey, and what do I miss now? It's really the last 5 years is one residency after the other, and you even have denied one residency because you felt for yourself it is too much and we would like to live again in Pakistan. Maybe you can describe a little bit from where you come and how this developed, that you then are now such a traveling person?
Pakistani art scene, when I was, before I traveled, I thought Pakistani art scene is very boring. But since I've been traveling a lot, I find it more and more interesting what is happening home. Because probably before I didn't had anything to compare with to understand it better. I went to the university. There are some conventional school in Pakistan. Art universities are like the core, you could say, pillar, very very important pillar in an art scene, because there are no galleries, no museum. So and every artist I know who are practicing art is somehow teaching. I myself, when I'm back in Pakistan, I teach. In Pakistan there was also kind of a trend to go to artist residencies or apply for them. When I was a student, I saw my teachers who were applying for residencies and going, or always also talking about artist residencies or experience of being in a residency. I applied for my first residency in Stuttgart without really knowing what to expect from a residency. But Solitude was sort of a starting point for me. It's called Academy Law Solitude, and it's literally
and
a
from where
Solitude.
did you know about that?
My teacher was at Solitude before me 12 years back. So he was there for 6 months, and he told me about it, that there's this opportunity. He sent me this open call, and I applied with the email, and I got in. The selection was for 1 year, which was too much for me to take 1 year. So I left it after 9 months, because it was literally a solitude for me. Because I'm coming from a city where you hardly have a sense of privacy. It's a loud city. There are a lot of people and everything. And I was in a place like a top of the mountain in a slush where you don't see many people around. Only people you meet are the artists. And also, I think that time I was going through a very hard time in my practice as well. I couldn't make any work. Like 7-8 months, I was so much struggling. And I thought it's like I'm finished as an artist. I don't know, because I was probably playing a lot of with the context in Pakistan when I was working.
Can you, sorry to interrupt, but can you a little bit describe how this school, this Beacon House National University, how this is structured? This is a school for visual arts.
It's a school for visual. Yeah, it's a school for visual arts and design. So, in 90s, there are a few artists from Pakistan who went abroad to study. So when they came back, they obviously felt, I think they felt a misfit to go to a conventional school. So they started this new school by this big businessman family, which funded them. So. It's a complete private institute with the very, very radical ideas, even at that time, and I think even now. And I feel myself is kind of a product of them, because they were literally at that time when they were teaching us, they were denying a lot of things which was happening by and large in Pakistani art scene. And they were more emphasized on ideas and trying to bring materials like video, which I started to do in Pakistan. And the university literally changed the course of my practice, because I was making sculptures and drawings, like really hard physical work which I was doing before. And then
was there also a media department at the school, for example, or video? Are there teachers for video art? And
they did sort of a media workshop which we had to take out materials and use it and have some sort of a guidelines. But for me, knowing video could be, I could make work out of video was sort of really a surprise in a very exciting way. And then I slowly, within the course of 4 years, I slowly shifted my practice towards making videos.
And I heard about that Lahore is also a center for film production.
It was.
Or it was, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that have any influence on you? Because some of your videos have a lot to do with acting and performing and choreography. In Lahore, the film industry was very, very big, and I remember going with my father to some of the film sets to see films in making. That is sort of still in my memory. But then there was completely
gone. There was no film industry anymore because of the religious extremism and also the martial laws and the army.
It all went to India.
It went to India, and also we stopped making films like from 100% to like 4% or 3%. But now I'm going back to this somehow, because I'm now working on a commission by Sharjah Art Foundation where I'm working on this period. So now we have started making films again. So there was a period where the old cinema was very on its boom. There were a lot of people involved in making film, not literally trained, but they were sort of families of filmmakers, families of lightmen, soundmen, and everything. And they all went jobless. A lot of projects, because of no money, they were half finished or not finished or anything. And then now you have this new generation of filmmaker, which is coming mostly from TV, or also coming from abroad, who studied abroad, and they're coming and bringing new techniques of filmmaking and everything. And still the people who were practicing old method of filmmaking, they are still jobless, so they are doing some other things. And I thought I should make a film about all this thing, about all these unfinished projects which in the film, and a lot of these stories which are probably could be told. So I'm making this film which I'm again articulating. I start with the text. So in the text is somewhere which I build up in. It's like I'm making a film of somebody else's film. So it's not my film. So because I'm building the whole narrative of the film of somebody else's memories of a film, or from a point of view of a maker, not the script itself. Like I'm making a research. There's one person who said, this old actor who told me about working with this very famous character. He told me that he remembered that this actor came close to him, but he don't remember what he said. And I thought if I could picturize this scene, it would be very amazing that you know that somebody comes to you but had nothing to say, and there's a pause. So something like this I'm trying to sort of make. So it's a research. I don't know. Maybe it's a success or it's a failure. I don't know. It would take. It's a 2-year-long project. So I've started a research, but yeah.
I wanted to mention that on the one side, it's acting and performing theater, maybe, which is an aspect in your work. But then also what you just mentioned is text writing, even poetic writing, and I would say that some of your video pieces are so, in a way, very laconic, short descriptions of something. And maybe we could already show now one your first video piece ever. Yeah. It's from 2010, and the title is Man-Made, and I think it's 8 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is quite, we selected a little bit like this from the video works. One work which has been, or two works which has been produced and realized before Basir left Lahore, and then another one when he came back. So it's really, I mean, I think we all cannot imagine a bigger difference between two cities like Stuttgart and Lahore. Lahore has 7 million of inhabitants. It's this real, very, very old city with a tradition and heritage which is amazing, and an Islamic city also with a very proud history. And then coming to Stuttgart, I would like to hear more about that still. But first we have a look on this first film, Man-Made. Maybe you will introduce it a little bit?
Yeah, so this is the very first work which I made in video. As I said, my practice was more in sculpture and drawing before even I started my formal education, let's say. And this is, video was sort of, video has some excitement in it. Like I think the first time I started filming things, so I was doing some experiments before that, but this is the work which I think I kept it still with me, and I still sort of I like to show this work. It's called Man-Made. It's a video of a man I met who never wore a suit in his life before. So it's 30 minutes of him in the process of sort of a transformation for the first time. So it's like 13 minutes, but we could show a bit part of it and then.
How long is it?
It's like 13, 1 and 3. It is with no sound.
I would like to ask a question regarding the presentation. Here we have this kind of split screen. Would you imagine to have it in a space, screened on hanging projection walls, for example?
I think I have. I like to show this work on a monitor, in one monitor next to each other. Yeah.
So that's two different images. Vis-a-vis.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell a little bit more about that man? Or do you want to tell more, or is it just...
I met this person through somebody, and I was looking for somebody who had not wore a suit in his life. And to be honest, if I think of the time then, I do not remember literally why I made this work. But now I try to trace and try to understand. As I said, I went to this university, BNU, which is a very expensive, posh university. So in Pakistan, there's a lot of class system exist in Pakistan. Upper class, which speaks English, wear different clothes, eat separately, different restaurants, and there's a low middle class and a lot of. So I went to this university, which was very expensive universities, kids of bureaucrats and whatever, and they there is the time when I had to speak in English. That was the first time I had to, because the mode of education was in English, and daily life was in English, how people were presenting. And I think at that time I was also sort of going through a time of transformation a bit forcefully, I would say. I think maybe that could be the reason that I was thinking about this, the change or transformation from one person to the other.
But the men that you knew in your life, did they wear suits? Your father, for example, or uncles, or?
In my family, yes. I had, like my father, when he was young, he used to wear it. He wore it also on special occasions. And this guy also, I asked him if he has ever wore it. He said he saw his son wearing it on his wedding. So it's sort of something a bit special still that exists. And should I move to the next work? It goes on and on.
No, maybe we really want to see it.
Okay, sorry.
Till the end. So your own family, you did not speak not speak English.
No.
This came then later at the university.
At the university it came.
Yeah. And at school?
At school I studied English as a subject, but even in English class we were speaking in Urdu. So it was so it was more with Urdu teaching English. It's not you speak in English.
I would like to come back to this decision to go to Stuttgart. I mean, I don't want to put too much attention to that city, Stuttgart. But can you tell us a little bit what your expectations were, and how did you think about Stuttgart or Germany even what cliches came to your mind, or what did you expect there?
I was literally. I think I thought of going to like a hub for art. I thought because we always study through Western books and Western art and everything. So for me, it was sort of a bit of an excitement. But when it comes to residency, I didn't really had any expectations what to expect from a residency. But I was, of course, asking my teacher, meeting them, how it is. But there was very interesting time when I was going abroad, and I made work about that as well. There's another work I made. When I was going to Germany for the first time, all my family invited me for dinner. Like I had 7 dinners, and people were so excited because I was going. Not because I was leaving, but it was like something I was going. And they were all giving me impression that I was going to somewhere better place. And I remember a lot of discussions how people were perceiving where I was going. Like one of my cousin who said me that, once you are in Germany, just get out of the airport, tear your passport, throw it away, just disappear, don't come back. So it was this serious intensity sort of a comments which I was getting. So I had this expectation that I was going to this better side of the world.
But as an artist also.
It was really the case. Yeah. And I was surprised, I was shocked that people were not too good. Like it, I don't want to be rude, but it wasn't. I probably was expecting too much. Like I was expecting that the artist would be amazing, the whole system would be great and everything. But of course, when in reality, it was something that I could relate to, because I think I was also probably in Pakistan getting a similar sort of an education, or maybe more desperately, because I was following there a lot of programs like for video on internet or some blogs or website, trying to understand what is happening in the world, and also in the university where they were continuously telling us to be aware what is happening internationally.
And what would you say about the difference, or maybe this similitude between the teaching system, because solitude is part of the academy in Stuttgart, isn't it?
No,
And
it's
so-
not really.
not
It was
really.
very independent. It was very, very independent, whatever I wanted to. And I think that was probably the difficult part for me. It was it has no influence on me, you know. It was a kind of a place which, if I have a chance to go there again, I might go there again, because now I feel I probably wasn't making work, you know, I was probably making myself, you know, because I was spending time with what I had produced before. And I was looking at it again and again, meeting people, explaining, but at the same time not making any more work. But that time had so strong influence on me that after that, wherever I went, I was producing work so quickly, because I think solitude sort of put a base for me to better articulate, to understand my position as an artist and how to utilize a context and make work. So that also, I would say, sort of became sort of a strategy for me in later practice, that I was started to travel like rapidly, and I was going to new contexts, trying to understand something and make something out of it. Yeah.
So now he has fulfilled his task.
Yes. There is this in my work. There's always a conversation which I built. How I from one work I go to the next one. When I made this work, I thought of, okay, this is one person, and how should I go about it? Then I started to think about this idea of transformation in terms of clothes as an identity, and how a piece of cloth could carry sort of a memory. So I went to this market. It's called Landa Bazaar. It's a second-hand clothing market in Lahore, and it's called Landa Bazaar because of London somehow. And it's
because the clothes was coming from
before
the UK.
Before they were coming from UK, but now the clothes were coming from places like China, Korea, and all the developed countries. And so I thought of this place as it's a huge place full of clothes. People are changing clothes on the street. You would see it in the video. And I thought of this place as a place where people from one society and clothes from the other societies are there, and they merge into each other. And I was doing theater, so I was thinking about a lot of drama was happening there. So I made this work, and I end up slowing down video, but as well as the sound, which was because it's a loud market, and it's kind of became a soundtrack for their performance. goes like for 13 minutes. Yeah, so maybe if you have any question.
Shall we stop here and make a pause and then continue?
Okay.
Or shouldn't we have it until the end? Because I think it's like a composition, and it has a very it focuses on the material and the materiality of the image, but on the other side it's giving so much space to think about what these people are having and buying, and this notion of second-hand is so speaking, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's also a very political work, one could say.
Yeah, it could be. For me, the idea was that how a piece of cloth from the other society could move from one body to another, and of course, because it's second-hand, so it must have carried something in terms of influences or everything else. Yeah. And
in this style, how you slow down the movements and all the we have light now, and all the sounds that you integrated, and it has also kind of animal character for me. It's like animals who have their skin or
there were few influences at that time. One influence was of me doing theater performances, because I was writing theater and doing stage performances. So I think that sort of a drama came from that in terms of a selection and how the duration and the treatment was that when I went to this market and there were so many colors and it was very loud and everything, and I thought if I shoot it like this, I might not be able to really present what I really mean, because I wanted to put much more deeper meaning into it. So when I slowed down, I realized there's some magic about slowing down how things were merging. So I started to treat it more as a painting. So that's why you and have really crop zoom images where sometimes it completely becomes like flat colors, and then a form appears, then there's a color. And
is that still with the filming or with the turning, or is it a post-production?
It is a post-production. It is a post-production. Yeah, so there were things which I thought of. I thought only the space should charge when they are wearing clothes. So when it's settled down, it goes dark again, and then it appears. It was really like a theatrical performance for me, like scenes after scene. And I was looking at this whole event as a whole larger staged activity which takes place on a street. It's not there every time of the year. It's only when the winters are arriving, then you have this. So you see a lot of the clothes are basically for winters.
And Pakistan is also a production place of clothes.
Clothing, yes. Yeah, it is, but mostly like export quality, we call it. But second-hand clothing is not the idea as probably we have it here. Over there, it's people don't like to tell that they are wearing second-hand clothes. So and it's very cheap clothes as well. Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Please.
I didn't understand. Is it performed or you were just filming?
No. I was filming it. It's a market.
Yeah, but you hide it.
I had a camera, but nobody was looking at me, and I was just filming it.
Were they women also?
Yeah, that's the thing that sometimes people tell you about your work, and once I was presenting this work and somebody asked me, there's one woman in this video, yes. No, there's one who's wearing a jacket, but somebody said to me that there's no video, no woman in this work, and I started to think about there was really not many women in the market as well who were wearing clothes. And then I started to think about that a lot of my videos have male characters. Why is that? So this is something which I learned and understood from it. But there is one woman, because it's a society which is very much male-oriented society, you could imagine.
So shall we continue? And also we'll continue with the sound.
Sure.
And have the light dimmed. Thank you. that video coming to an end, or is it a loop? It could just so you didn't had in mind duration?
Not really. No, it was more depending on the material which I shot.
Here, maybe. So I can say what I very much like on that piece, and this I have seen also in Dubai. This was in that shortlisted exhibition which has been shown there, and I found it there. We have seen it on a monitor, and it was with headphones, I think. And so it's quite different. I did not see it now so big. Is that but that's okay for you to have it screened like a really huge projection? Yeah, there are different.
There are some works which I'm not sure about how to present them. Literally, I think these are the first few works which I'm becoming more specific now with time, how I want to present, what size and everything. But initially when I started to exhibit, I didn't really know. That's again to our conversation before, that I was very much interested, I think, and still very much interested in ideas, like what my work carries. Not very much about the form. I think for a longer time, a lot of my work have really bad quality in terms of material. Now I have started to improve it with time. But before, I think the quality was an issue for me, and also how I wasn't very, very specific about in terms of exhibiting the work.
And so now we have seen two works you produced before you left your country, and so they are both from 2010. So they are elder works already, early works, one could say. And then could you tell a little bit what you developed in your work then, and so that we can come then to that video we selected to show it. Thank you for coming, which is then from 2013.
Yeah, after, so first I went to Stuttgart, then I went to Turkey, then came back to Stuttgart, and I went to Japan, and I think I was also traveling a lot in terms of just looking and everything. And then I went back to Pakistan, and I realized that what has changed in me in terms of how do I make new work and how do I position myself, because for me, positioning myself became very important in the context. And I realized that I became sort of a silent observer of my own society, because I had now other contexts, other things to compare with. So I was seeing things which I was probably not seeing them before. So I wanted to make, and I was looking at very small observation, like how two people interact in terms of their gestures and movement. Even my family, how they were talking to each other. And so I thought, what if I set up an event and try to record how people interact with each other. And I thought if I do it with my family or somebody I know might be very casual, it would like a birthday party, but I wanted something where I would be an outsider in a way. So I had this person who was helping me with other things. So I asked him if he could organize an event. So we do not tell them what the event is about, but just have people there. And so with him, I sit down and we thought, how are we going to serve them or whatever. So he became sort of an architect of the work. But when I went there so they belonged to one family, like an extended family and everything. So when I went there with my camera, I realized that the structure which I was trying to build in the work sort of collapsed by myself with the camera, because they became very uncomfortable of me as an outsider there, and especially with this big camera. And the whole event sort of became very strange during the course how we were filming it. And I started to sort of enjoy it at that time. I thought, let it be like this, and let literally what he wants to do, just do it like that. And then see how people interact. So we had this one room where we shot this film, this work, and I did very few editing part of it. I tried to use all the clips. So there are a lot of repetition in the work if you see it.
So one can say that this film now, thank you for coming, is much more choreographed and more mise en scène than the other one.
Than the other one. That's true. That's true.
अपना तार्किक करा दो
सजावल सादा मशीन से टेलीविजन
सारे रख के थोड़ी देर में किलो खा लो जी ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਜੀ
Thank you. How did have they been instructed to know what they do, and how did you? I mean, it's really it's an image like an audience which becomes performers,
Yeah.
and they have to act in a way. This is directed,
Yeah. Yeah.
pre-scripted, even.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the initial plan was that we would make them sit, we would make them eat certain things, but not really. We didn't thought of like details, but I think it was spontaneous at that time. It was kind of a need that you had to tell them what to do. So there was sort of a pause in between. There was a certain uncomfortness in between. They would.
And they were not allowed to talk, for example, or
No, they
giggle
they were completely allowed. That was something. Like I made this one exercise later. Like I organized this one more event, and I sent only cameramen to shoot it, not myself, who was one of the community.
You did not assess the shooting.
This one I did,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about there's another sort of a work after this. I thought if maybe because of my positioning myself became difficult, how would it be if I send somebody who has a certain comfort levelness with the people. So I organized, funded this event of 20, 30 people, and I just sent like a cameraman, one of them with the camera, to record it. And in that it's pretty much normal, I think. But because the whole structure, the composition started to break, and I started to use it, probably all those fragments in my work. Not in a very proper way, but more in a very strange, playful way. Sometimes you wake, there's a sound, but suddenly sound goes off. So it was really like editing, sort of a collage, which is sort of a repetition of things, in a way.
And your intention has been to more create a kind of atmosphere, which
Yes.
is kind of uncomfortable.
It wasn't the intention before, but I think then this work was it started as an experiment, but I started to later use it. Like in some of the, I did quite a lot of work after that, where I started to think about how do I deal with my actors or my participant? How do we play with this power of being a filmmaker with the camera and the person who is performing? Which comes to this point where I just recently, the work I shot, which I was telling you about, that the work I commissioned only. Not being there as a person there during the work was made, but as a sort of becomes as an initiator. So in that work, I would like to show that work, a bit of it. It's just like I finished now. There's this very new work I made in the Rijksakademie when I was in there. In the Rijksakademie, the interesting thing is that there are a lot of workshops. You go every morning, and there are people working. There's a workshop for ceramics, for painting, for other things. And my practice with time slowly became very much idea-based practice, where I was thinking about writing about things.
Yeah, you told me about this open studio situation, and everybody has to show something which is really material, and you thought you just have the idea.
Yes, so we had this first internal open studio when I opened my studio after 2 months, and people came into my studio, and there was nothing, but painters had paintings or sculpture, or other studios were very full. And I was thinking about that. I worked hard, I thought maybe I was just thinking about something. So I thought maybe could it be possible that my hard work, which is just about thinking, and I was talking about that, how lazy I'm becoming with time because I spend too much time writing about things and everything. So I thought, is it possible that I only send instructions of the work back home in Pakistan, hire a production company, but articulate my position as a somebody who is far away waiting for the work to arrive. So I decided to work with porters, these coolies who work at the railway station, who help you transport luggage from your car to the train or train to the car. And I thought if they could help me to transport the idea of the work towards me and carrying my personal belonging which are back home. So it's kind of very much overlaid work. Maybe we could... Maybe a bit sound.
And this is the newest piece. I just finished.
This is
yeah.
This is just I finished.
And what is the title of that work?
It's called Monument of Arrival and Return.
Monument of Arrival.
Arrival and Return.
Yeah, it looks very. I mean, if I think, did you conceive this in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
And have you seen Rembrandt paintings in the Rijksmuseum? And really, it makes me think a lot about old master paintings from Baroque and the lighting of the images, of the background. And the background, is it a real space or is it a painted background?
No, it's a real space. It's I have after Thank You for Coming, I shot multiple films, and I thought it would be interesting because all the works which I was doing, I was making sort of an experiment, trying to do something and trying to collaborate, trying to build something and trying to. So I thought of making films in a grey structure building, which are sort of half made, half done. And the other thing which in this work you might have noticed, like there are no windows, so it's sort of I thought of making like this claustrophobic sort of a space in between. With the quality, because the people I worked with, the cameraman who was he was a photographer, and when we were discussing, I asked him that all the shots you're doing, it's like you're taking a photograph but on a longer duration. So the works has no movement in a way. The camera doesn't move and everything sort of is slowed down. It requires a lot of drawings and a lot of discussions and everything, which, yeah.
Yeah, if I think back now to that second-hand market piece and compare this is really a big step, I would say, but it's also a step towards a more artificial language, maybe filmic language. What would you say? What's your
I think
tendency?
so. I think now I'm more interested in terms of building things on my own, because the more I realized, the more I started to rely on writings, I started to create my own world in it, even though the fragments or the points are very realistic in my work. There are many works which I made where I would go with a very formal structure, what I want to do, but I would work with the participant who might not agree with me. So there's always sometime conflicts in terms of making of the work. So I would have this very structure quality in the work, that this is how I want to do, but sometimes the participant, the actors are not there physically, like mentally they are not there to take part in it. So this sort of a play where, sort of a power play or something where I try to tell one story and the actors start to tell another story. So this sort of a in-between state. But now I'm more sort of trying to approach to a thought, to an idea. That's how I wrote the work. I didn't make it, but in terms of, if you read all my works have a text next to it. So in the part of the text, half is I'm referring to myself as an initiator, and the next part when I'm waiting for the work to arrive, I'm referring myself as an author. So never really a maker of my work in a way.
So it's really literature and theater and film coming
together. But let's say how far, because there are other things which I'm doing, have other like the film which I spoke about, which I'm making in Pakistan, it's a starting point is a fiction because of the film is a base of it as a fiction, as a narrative. But what I'm building on it is a very, very sort of a realistically charged film which I'm trying to make. So that there I'm sort of approaching it in another way.
Very good, thank you. Maybe we open up here at the moment, and because here are some people who are maybe want to add something or ask something or comment or ask something which I have forgotten. But already now I would like to say thank you for coming, and thank you for coming too. And yeah, maybe if
Hello, I have two questions. The early work with the men, how do the men feel? Did you speak with him if he take this clothes, this Western clothes on?
We had like discussion before that. I was talking to him about he also have a copy of this work, which I thought he owns it. So I gave him a copy of this work later. But he was kind of excited about it, or okay with it, or happy about it. I gave him, or he asked me to give him the last where he's wearing clothes as a photograph as well. So I think I feel he was happy about it. He was yeah. No, because it was also not mine. I borrowed it from somewhere. Yeah, earlier works are.
Not made for him.
They were not made for him. They were also used for some. Like my earlier works were. I didn't had money, and also I didn't had something to produce. There are a lot of cuts in between. Like funny enough that my first 6 videos are shot on one DV. So there's sometime if I have a DV in Pakistan, when I look at it, sometime they overlap because of it has been used so many times. So I'm thinking also to maybe use this DV as a work because it's overlap sometime. So these work literally costed me. There's one work which I made of my father. It costed him like 2 cents, and this was costed me for, I don't know, I gave him like €5 or something. So I didn't have money to buy suit that time.
Okay, the other question is this orange clothes at the end. What is the meaning of this? Why did they wear this orange?
I tried to make a research about it. Why do they wear orange clothes? And it really transformed with time. I don't know what happened before. It used to be red in my childhood, and now they're turning into orange. I don't know who is coming up with this idea, what is happening, but certainly they are. Now it's very much orange clothes they started to wear. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean?
The man at the end, I thought it was like in a convent or something.
Conference.
Convent?
no, but they are not priests. They are monks or priests.
No. They're coolies. They are porters, like who help you transport luggage at the railway station. So they have a job. If you see, they have a number at the back. They work at the Lahore railway stations. If you are there with your luggage and you have to take your luggage to the train, they would help you to take it to the train. And if you arrive at the train, they take your luggage, help you to the car. So I was interested. Interested me that it was kind of nice that they all the time they move, but they do not go anywhere. They always sort of facilitate the move, but themselves are being always there. So that's why I started to thought if they could create that transformation or move within the duration of the film. That's why I thought I would work with them. A few days back, I was having this sort of interview with this writer who saw this work, and she said, probably you're leaving the labor part in your work. That's why probably you work with directly with the people who physically do labor. And I thought maybe that could also be sort of my interest, where I went towards very physical, the opposite side of the work, and myself performing as a writer or somebody who is thinking.
So you told us you had these residencies. You began in Pakistan, and then you took on these residencies. Now I'm curious, everything we saw was obviously related to from where you are coming from. Are you interested into doing something with the location where you stay over a period of time? That means you were in Bahia in Brazil, for example?
Yeah.
Is there any influence or any interest what you could do with what you experience in Bahia, for example, or in Stuttgart?
No, very, very good that you asked this question, because that's something, it's a major part of my practice which I'm not talking about. I'm very, very much interested in the context where I am. And that's something, the decision which I took when I left Pakistan, that I would not take my concern with me. So I would go as an observer and try to make something out of it. But Bahia, my residency in Bahia also had an interesting side to it. Not interesting, but anyways. This so I was awarded this residency with another artist who was living in Paris at that time, and we were awarded a residency in São Paulo by Video Brazil to go back to Brazil and produce something. And so because we both got together and we met in the award ceremony, so we were thinking about collaboration because we had to share 2 months together. So we're thinking about collaboration, what we could possibly do, because it was just 2 months. So I took my flight I had a connecting flight from Doha to Salvador. So when I reached Doha, I got email that the other artist, his name was Bakare Diallo, his plane got crashed on the way. When I was in Doha at that time, I got this news. So I had to take this other flight, and he died in the plane crash. So that was the strongest influence I had in order to make anything over there. So anyways, when at that time, art or residency was not important for me. The first thing came into my mind was it could have been me, and all these fears and everything. So I take my flight there. I was the first person to arrive in a residency of this group of 5 other artists. And so there were a lot of these, they had these workers in the house who were preparing a house for the other residents to arrive. And I started to think about all of this, what to do about this context and everything, what just happened to me. So I end up making a film about this whole residency, which are preparing for the artist to arrive, but they never arrives. So they are like preparing a house. So when I was few years back, this thought came into my head before this, that when the day I die, how the next day would look like, how the people would get the news of my death, like how my family would react and everything. And I started to become I was curious about the next day, which I would not see, the first day which I would not see. So I thought I would articulate this whole thing and make a work in a memory of 2 artists, which is me and Bakare. So it's a work in a memory of both of us. It's a work in one, you see these different activities in the house, in this side, and on the other side, I asked these people who were working in a residency if they could stand and look at a distance. The only thing they have to do is not to blink their eyes and wait. So when you do not blink, you slowly start to have sort of tear with pain. So, and the other thing which I haven't shown this work, and I was thinking probably the work would become more authentic when I die. It's like, because it's something with requirements of the work, that it is in a memory of both of us. Because half of this I implemented on myself. So something like this which I did during with that time. Then, yeah, these are the shots of them preparing the house. For like the 3 days they were preparing a house for other residents to arrive. So it was all preparation of something, but at the same time the one artist who is not coming anymore, And on the other side I asked them if they could just, just stay very strongly, no emotion, but look at a distance and just in a gesture of waiting, constant waiting. And then these are the work I made in Turkey. These were the old fishermen's community, which was there. Now they have this very houses. So I thought it would be interesting to work with a profession which is not there. So I tried to make this connection with the man and the sea. Having this one person in the course of the film sending a ship in a sea, like an empty ship with a turn-on motor, so it goes away, and he's standing there. So this call is like, it's called A Message to the Sea. And in this work, I stayed in this fisherman who was not working as a fisherman anymore. So I stayed in his house while he was away. I asked him if I could stay in his house. So when I was doing theater performances, we used to do this exercise that if I have to perform you, I start to pretend you in my mind. And after a while, I could be you, I could improvise. So I stayed in his house for 3 days, and I started opening his small personal things and just put them in his floor and photograph them. In a way, this work is called No Lands for a Fisherman. So I thought as a fisherman, they don't need a land. So even the profession was not there. There's still the idea of the profession which you could feel in this work, like very, very early morning. If you see them, the fishermen would only come at that time. Otherwise, you have tourists in this expensive hotels. So like photographing them forming like their very personal landscape. So I was always sort of interested in this context of the place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's short, but I don't have it. Yeah.
Or maybe the message to the sea.
This is the message to the sea with the ship. Yeah, I don't have it with me.
Yeah, I can recommend you to go on the website of Basir Mahmood. It was quite impressive, I would say, because there are you finding all the texts, also sometimes 2 lines, and it's so precise, but also very laconic, I would say. And then you can check out more about him, and I'm very happy that we had the chance to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to have an insight in your work, and I'm very curious to see how you develop this further, because I'm not, I thought, yeah, maybe you're a writer, and you are maybe more a writer and an author, but I don't think so, because I think your imagery is so strong in a way, and so, for example, what I would like to ask still is in that film before, Thank You for Coming, where you had that group. I mean, the most important or peculiar decision is to have these rows of chairs. I mean, have them sit there. You could do with a group of 16, 20 people, you can do everything with them, but you decided to have them in 4 lines or 5 lines, I don't know. So, and this is a very strong image, and it tells, so it's open, it can be an audience, it can be a kind of psychological seminar or so, or something else, and then so I'm very excited to see how this will develop further. And
Thank you.
Meet you again. Thank you for coming.